Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the S.H Figuarts Dragon Ball Krillin. This is the Dragon Ball without the name at the end. This is just good old Dragon Ball, which brings back all the feels, and this figure does too. But I should probably note, if you guys are feeling this figure, you're going to want to stick around because I have incorporated a rating system per your request. You guys asked for it, now I'm doing it. I have a rating system at the end of each review for every figure I review from this point going forward. And I've also, because some of you asked for this too, incorporated a rating system throughout for the various categories of the figure. For example, we're going to talk about the articulation, the accessories, and the overall aesthetic value of the figure. So make sure you stick around for all of that. But before we can get into any of that, we need to take a closer look. So let's go ahead and get this guy off the stand. And this guy stands just about 4 inches, which makes him just about a little over 10 centimeters. And if you ever found yourself lying awake at night sleepless, just wishing you could have another Kid Goku figure with a different head, well, I've got good news for you. That's what this guy is. And that's not a bad thing, it's just something worth noting. They are the exact same figure, of course not counting the head and accessories, and then of course the tail is not on Krillin. But otherwise they are the same. So if you liked this figure, you're probably gonna like this one, but it is very much the same. In fact, let's go ahead and just set them up. Do you want to see the figures next to each other? Let's put Krillin down and let's look at Goku, and we'll add a couple other ones too, because you guys like this kind of thing. Why is Goku not standing all of a sudden? There we go. So there's Goku and Krillin, and we'll put Bulma out. This way you guys have an idea of what the Dragon Ball figures look like all next to each other. And this brings up a good point. Scaling. The S.H Figuarts Dragon Ball figures, these and the Super and Z and everything else, they don't actually scale properly. The big figures are often too small and the small figures are often too big. They kind of slide toward the center of the spectrum in terms of size. Let me know what you guys think. I know for some of you that really bothers you, and for me it doesn't bother me that much. I get it. I wish they were bigger or smaller depending on the character, but I think it's okay. So in the comment section below, let me know what you guys think. Does it bother you that the scaling is a little bit off, or are you okay with it? Alright, that's enough looking at those guys. Let's go ahead and talk about Krillin, because that's what we're here for. So aesthetically speaking, this guy is fairly basic. He's not a big figure, which is okay. He does have the right proportions and things. I think that's, at least based on memory, I didn't go back and rewatch Dragon Ball, but I think it's pretty good. It looks alright. I know a lot of people had some beef with the Goku figure. This guy's probably got some of the same issues, but ultimately I think it's okay. As far as paint goes on this guy, there isn't much. There's no shading throughout anywhere. That's a bummer. The face is really clean. The paintwork that is there, like for the logo on the chest and on the back, that's very nice. But here's the biggest drawback for me, and it's not that big, but it is the biggest, so if that indicates anything to you, that's probably good. The chest is painted. The rest of the skin tones are all molded. It doesn't match. It is a little bit more yellow than the rest of the skin tones. So with that and the lack of painting for his aesthetics, I'm going to give him only a 7 sensu beans out of 10. He is definitely lacking a little bit, but is still overall pretty solid. As far as accessories go, we have 3 different faces, or heads, their entire heads. We have the neutral head with a kind of a smile, which comes on him in the package. We have the kind of naughty smirking smile that is really well executed. I think that they could have easily screwed that up and they didn't. And then we have the yelling head, which does look fantastic as well. I also want to note he doesn't have white eyes, which is exactly how it should be, and I love that. For the hands, we have kind of a lot. We have the 2 fist hands that come on him in the package, 1 gripping hand for holding Goku's tail, 2 martial arts hands, 2 victory pose hands, 2 Dragon Ball holding hands which barely work, and then 2 wide open palm hands. Of course, we do have his 6-star Dragon Ball, which is executed very nicely. We have the little turtle stone, which is painted well enough, and then we have a display stand and a Kamehameha effect. The display stand is standard, so nothing to talk about there, and the Kamehameha looks pretty good, though I don't really care for the seam lines that are very obvious on the ball parts of either end. I think they could have probably handled that a little bit better with a little bit more finesse, but it's not super obvious. So overall, his accessories are pretty darn good. So I'm going to give them an 18 sensu beans out of 20. Pretty nice accessories overall. Now, as far as the articulation goes on this guy, it's nothing new. We've already looked at this on the Goku figure back when he came out, but we're going to go ahead and take another look. We have our standard ball hinge right here. It pegs down into the neck and rotates that way, but then we have this weird offset thing, which is not extra hinging. It's just a weird offset ball. So normally it would be like this and you'd only have the one ball peg at the top, right? Looks pretty normal, but this one is made to lean back and have an extra one. Why did they do this? I cannot for the life of me figure it out. It doesn't need to be that way because if you look at it, ultimately, where's that ball peg? Right above the center of the neckline anyway. So why didn't they just do like they normally do, or better yet, just use a double ball peg? I don't know. I don't get it. It doesn't really make sense. It doesn't really hurt the figure any, but it's very weird. So you can still lean him side to side, rotate the head, look forward and back. It's all still functional, but it does create kind of an odd situation, and most people probably won't notice this, but when you lean the head forward and back because of that weird design, instead of it actually leaning like a head, it's basically rotating much higher than it normally would. So instead of leaning, it's more like just shifting the position, which is obviously a very small thing, and it's not like it's a huge deal or anything, but it's weird. And why did they bother? Like, they created new engineering for this design. I mean, Goku had it too, but that's still new. So why? Why do they always overcomplicate things for no apparent reason? Could have just been a double ball peg, but whatever. I digress. Let's look at the shoulders because I really like these shoulders. We have this kind of swivel butterfly joint, which is glorious. I love these shoulders because it's so much better than the shoulders we get on the normal S.H Figuarts Dragon Ball figures. The ones with the little ball peg and the floating piece. Not a great design, honestly. This is so much better. You get way better butterfly type of motion, and it looks better. It's nice and clean. It's such a good design. Doesn't have any weird gapping or anything like that. It's awesome. Then we have our ball hinge for the shoulder, which is perfectly functional. Only downside to this design is being able to raise the arm straight up. But what you can do, let's see if it works. I remember it working on Kid Goku. Maybe it didn't. Let's test it. Can you rotate it? Yeah, you can get it pretty far to straight up, so that's something that they could probably work on. Oh, that's what it was. It was one of the Figurized kits. This should just rotate all the way around so that you can have it pointing straight up and have the arm go straight up. But it's still close. It's definitely a step in the right direction. I love that design. Anyway, ball hinge works just fine. Bicep swivel, single jointed elbow, that's all fine. The wrists are on a ball hinge too, which actually work really nicely, so that's good. For the torso, it's not great. You can see that joint a lot of the time. You can see it right in the center of his torso. Unless you make sure you don't pose him, you can see it, so that's a bummer. So you do have a hinge and a ball peg in there, which does allow him to lean forward pretty well, but it really stretches out his torso and creates a big gap. So that's definitely not a good situation. The lower torso does have a ball peg as well, so that'll help, but it doesn't have a huge amount of range. So you're going to want to do most of your posing on the ball peg only up here, not the hinge part, because the hinge is a turd and it's ugly. It creates gaps. So it does limit his torso quite a bit, but you can lean him if you want to. Leaning back works a little bit, but that's mostly down here on the lower torso. Definitely could have been handled a little bit better, but it'll do. You have a floating belt that rotates around just fine, and then of course you can move the tassels. That's nice. For the hips, full rotation forward and back. Even better than full on the front, and not quite all the way on the back, but still really good range. I like that. I think that's pretty awesome. Going out to the side, pretty good, though it does leave a bit of a dangly bit right here in the middle. That could have probably been addressed, but it looks really good when it's like this because it creates the baggy pants effect, so that's fine. Thigh swivels in there just fine. Single jointed knee, pretty ugly, only 90-degree range, not exceptionally good. And then for the ankles, the best part about this guy, and maybe the best ankles out of any Dragon Ball figure other than maybe the Bulma figure, ball hinge, full range forward, full range back, love it. Rotated around, full ankle rocker, absolutely gorgeous ankles, love them. So the articulation on this guy, while it does have some shortcomings, it is pretty solid. I'm gonna give it, let's give it a 14 out of 10. 14 out of 10 for this guy. I think that's okay, pretty solid articulation. So final verdict on this guy, I like it. It's a really fun figure. Does it have problems? Yes, most do. I really liked the Kid Goku figure despite its problems, and I stand by that after having not been around it for a while and getting it out again and looking at this guy again. It's one of the more fun S.H Figuarts figures. They pose up nice, they look good when they're posed, the ankles work really well, and people don't, like some people maybe, I don't know, I might be making this up completely, consider all the points of articulation equally valuable. For me, the ankles are significantly more valuable than almost anything else because they are the thing that lets the figure be in a different pose. You can move the arms around all you want, but if he has to stand straight up and down, it's no good. So even a little bit of arm posability with a lot of ankle can get him into a much more dynamic pose, and I appreciate that. So I'm very happy that this guy has that, and I'm very happy that it looks good overall, and I really like the heads, the sculpt, and the paint. Everything's just good about this guy except for those few things. So this guy, I'm going to give him an overall, let's say 8 senzu beans out of 10. Very pleased with it. I think you guys will be too. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it, and it does help out a whole bunch. That's how YouTube knows that the videos are any good. If you guys are commenting and giving thumbs up, it really does make a difference, so please do that. And if you haven't subscribed, you should probably do that too, because I do have new videos up like this almost every single day, especially when there's enough stuff to review. But even if I don't, I do have playlists and playlists and playlists of thousands of other reviews for you to check out. So make sure you do that. If you're feeling like you need to watch a video and I don't have a new one, that's something you can do. So make sure you check out those, subscribe, thumbs up, all that fun stuff. And in the meantime, keep collecting.